Welcome back to GeeKlassic, my series of reviews looking back at older films, and this is the second installment on my Harry Potter series. On my first episode I had Mr. Sean Chandler, and today I have another Chandler, this time first name, Chandler Langley. Welcome to the channel, Chandler.
Hello everyone, I am here doing a collab review with my good friend Ren Geekness. Don't think that this puts any difference in our rivalry, Mr. Geekness. Okay, aside from all of the joking, I'm here to talk about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I kind of have a little bit of an unpopular opinion here, and I guess I'm being a little biased because, well, I didn't exactly grow up that much with Harry Potter. I only grew up with two of the first movies, and ironically, it's The Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, so I'm kind of looking to talk about Chamber of Secrets because I do have somewhat of a biased opinion about it. Ironically, this was the only Harry Potter movie I would watch a lot of times other than any of the other Harry Potter movies. I think I saw Prisoner of Azkaban a little bit, but I didn't get into it that much. Ironically, a lot of people say that's actually the best film out of any entire franchise.
And if you guys have been able to tell yet, I couldn't exactly meet up with Chandler online, so he had to pre-record his video and send it my way. I'm going to structure this with both of us sharing our thoughts. I'm going to give it over to Chandler to give his rating. I'm going to give it my rating, and then at the end, I'll say goodbye to Chandler and just leave all his links in the description below. As always, please go check him out, guys. So Chamber of Secrets is the second film in the Harry Potter franchise. A second film that many people recognize as the weakest. I as well. I was on that field until I watched it for this review. And I would still say it is my least favorite, but I wouldn't say this is the weakest film.
Let me just go ahead and get some of the positives out of the way. If you don't really pay much attention to Sorcerer's Stone, or if you just watch this one all on its own, you're probably gonna miss a few introduction bits like, oh, here's this character and here's that character, but I think you can get along with the movie just fine because it does repeat a lot of the same steps as the first movie, which again is counted as a flaw, but if you watch this film as its own thing, I still think that it's kind of enjoyable, well, at least for a good chunk of it. There's still some really good character interactions, like you get to see Hagrid, you get to see more Severus Snape, Dumbledore, and a bunch of other adult characters in here that mostly are the best actors in here, because the little kids in this film are not exactly that good at acting, at least at the beginning stages of the Harry Potter franchise. And comparing it to the first one, the CGI in this one has been done way better than it was in the first one, because the first film obviously was super fake. Now, even though this movie doesn't look as good as the movies that have been venturing on in the future, it still is a lot more clean and smooth than it was in the first film, because the first one looked really bad. And another thing that I did actually really appreciate from Chamber of Secrets is that I thought it had a real good mix of carrying in the Harry Potter whimsical magic that it likes to carry in, but also the darkness that I've seen from the future Harry Potter movies. I feel like that they meshed those two tones a lot more natural in this one than any of the other films. I will say that the first film did it better, but if you don't really pay attention to the first film, this one is actually not doing that bad of a job either. There's even a moment where Hermione was just paralyzed from head to bottom, and it was just a terrifying moment. I thought that was a really good mix of darkness into a Harry Potter film. And another thing why I actually enjoy this movie, again, you could say that this is probably the best thing of why I like the Harry Potter films, is just these three main kids just interacting with each other and figuring out mysteries and looking at all of the stuff that's going on at Hogwarts. It's just fun. And that's what I like mostly about Harry Potter, when it's not taking itself too seriously and focusing on the fun, whimsical stuff. I like it when the franchise is just being simple and not trying to be like a huge epic like Lord of the Rings or something like that. That's the real thing of what gets me in the mood of watching a Harry Potter film.
In my review of The Philosopher's Stone, I mentioned that my biggest praise was the world building for the film, while my biggest flaw was the lack of story and lack of weight to the story. Chamber of Secrets starts at a place that gives it a big advantage. Chamber of Secrets kicks off much faster, and we already know everything. We know Hogwarts, we know magic, we know Quidditch, we know so many things that we didn't know in the other film. We don't need to waste so much time in explaining this and that to the audience. Also, right now we know everything about the freaking Dursleys, who I didn't mention in my last review, and they are completely despicable, and they are a great tool to make you feel and care for Harry Potter in the first film and in this one. These are kind of the people who get worse and worse by every movie. The only movies that you don't despise them is 6, 7, and 8 because of something that happens in the Order of the Phoenix, but we'll get there in time. Also, this film ends up having an incredibly better pacing than Philosopher's Stone, as well as a much better story. There's such a compelling mystery in this film about the Chamber of Secrets. What is it? Why are the kids being petrified? What are all these messages written in blood and what do they mean? The film goes into the darker paths that the Harry Potter series would eventually go into that I really appreciate. Also, it doesn't only go there for one sequence, but it also doesn't lose the whimsical nature of the Harry Potter films, at least the nature that we knew these films to have until this point. We also meet Dobby in this film, who starts off by looking and feeling like he would be the second coming of Jar Jar Binks. But thankfully, that is not the case, for he turns out to be a much interesting and very compelling and relatable character because of his relationship with Lucius Malfoy, father to Draco, played by Jason Isaac, who does a phenomenal job. And this dude is so freaking awful. He's such an awful human being. Once you see what he does to Dobby on a consistent basis, you cannot help but be on the side of this little elf and want to hug him. Turns out there's really no surprise to why Dobby is such a broken little fragile creature, with this guy always beating him up. I still remember watching this film for the first time, and what scared me was not the basilisk, was not the Tom Riddle shit, it was Dobby being kicked by Lucius Malfoy. I just remember being, oh shit, that hurt. Because it's a thing that could happen to me, you know, I was a little kid the size of Dobby maybe.
And the last positive thing that I will say about this movie is Dobby. Now, I am not gonna lie, at first I hated this character. I thought he was annoying, I thought he just got on my nerves about so many things. He kept on ruining a lot of things for Harry Potter and just made situations even worse. But understanding his character, it's actually really good and really interesting. And I really like diving into a story about how he's made to be a slave and if he receives any kind of new special clothes, then he can actually be set free. And he's being a slave to the Slytherins. I forgot their names. What was their name? Malfoy. The Malfoys were actually the ones who were taking in Dobby as their slave. That just goes to show how much of a fan of Harry Potter I am.
Also, what helps the story and the mystery is the development of Harry's character, because it's intrinsically connected to that. The mystery of the Chamber of Secrets helps the mystery of why Harry starts speaking Parseltongue, which in this film was just an awesome thing, because I remember thinking at this time, truly believing at this time, that Harry was going to turn out to be the villain of this whole thing. One of the downfalls of this film, however, is that in many ways it moves very similarly to Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone. I'm always mixing the two titles up. During the second act, the film just chills out a bit. It just becomes kind of self-indulgent, just kind of lays back and starts enjoying itself again. And it has some of the similar scenes, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but very similar scenes that serve the same purpose as in Sorcerer's Stone. In the second act, it just doesn't move as well as in the beginning and at the end. And that honestly to me took some of the urgency away. While in the Sorcerer's Stone, you didn't really have any urgency, for better or worse. In this you did have it, and the film itself takes it kind of away in the second act.
Now I guess I can go ahead and lead over to the negative stuff. And the negative side, yes, again, comparing it to the Sorcerer's Stone, it does a lot of the repeated elements that it does from the first one, so it kind of makes this film, watching it, really pointless, especially when you watch the end. And not only does the ending of this movie feel entirely pointless, like you don't even need to watch this film in general compared to the other films, which feel a lot more important, it's miraculously dull. It's just Harry Potter fights a snake. I mean, that should be epic, but again, it just feels really slow and padded out, and nothing that exciting happens. I think the only moment where I was just like, oh, is that's a weird thing that they did there, is when Harry Potter pretty much stabbed the snake with a sword up its mouth. And yeah, that's the only reaction that I got out of it. And even when that happened, it was kind of lame. There's also this other moment where these two kids were going inside a cave. There's like this gigantic spider. I mean, it was like, surprisingly enough, there was like really good craftsmanship in that scene. But again, it's just like, being attacked by spiders and all that stuff, it was kind of lame. The more you grow up and watch that scene, it's like, yeah, it's not that good. But again, as a kid, when I watched that, I kind of did have fun looking at that scene, but growing up, it doesn't really have much of an effect anymore. And I guess I can go into other negatives, but it's kind of just my general thoughts on Harry Potter. I mean, I'm not exactly the hugest fan of Harry Potter, to be honest. I think the biggest problem that I have with this franchise is pretty much his foster family. I hate them. Not because I'm supposed to hate them, but I hate the way that they are written specifically for Harry Potter, just to give them an easy motivation if they have to be like the most disgusting, most brutal people that you have ever seen in your entire life, and that just gives a motivation for Harry Potter to say, no, I am better than what you guys think I am. It's just like, why didn't you guys just cast him out? I mean, the only kind of excuse that I saw them get was like, they swore an oath to protect him and taking care of him, but just, you're not taking care of him for starters, and the second thing is that if you hate him so much, why don't you just cast him out? You don't have to deal with any of this magical, whimsical stuff in the first place. And I think, like in Prisoner of Azkaban, the more I see of Harry Potter's family just talking trash about Harry Potter and his mom and dad, it just seems like that they don't even like him in general, so why don't they just throw him away? I mean, they swore an oath. Like, I don't really think people would just go ahead and swore an oath and promise things that much. I mean, you could just go ahead and cast him out and just have him being thrown into like some kind of orphanage or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It just feels like a lazy excuse just so that we can have a motivation for Harry Potter. Now, I get it's a good message for kids to say, like, if anybody is telling you, even your own parents are telling you that you're no good, you're a nobody, you should always think that you can be special for anything. And the way they actually create Harry Potter is to be like the special chosen one to save Hogwarts is actually a good, clever twist in for kids to actually learn about. I get what you're trying to do within that kind of premise, but to be honest, I feel like you could have gone stronger and a lot more interesting, where you can find this movie to be more fascinating, but again, it's just like, it's too easy A.
But let's go to talk about characters. One of them, Gilderoy Lockhart, played beautifully by Kenneth Branagh, who is so impeccable in this role. This dude is absolutely hilarious. I love the moment where he has this magic battle with Snape, which was awesome to see two teachers, two masters of magic, supposedly at least, fighting off in front of all these kids, and I felt like one of those kids. And then you have Harry and Malfoy fighting each other, and Malfoy is just embarrassed in this duel. It's such a great scene. I loved it. And let me talk about Dumbledore, who at this point, and for the last time, is played by Richard Harris. I forgot to mention him in my last review. I apologize, but my favorite moment from Richard Harris's Dumbledore is in this film at the end, when he talks to Harry about Fawkes and what it means that the Phoenix went on to aid him in his battle against the Basilisk, giving him the Sword of Gryffindor. It's such a great moment. It so symbolizes who Dumbledore is at this moment in time and how good of a mentor he is before really going dark, just like the universe around him. Chamber of Secrets is a more focused film with a tighter grasp on story and mystery, which is why the end to me and the mystery of Tom Riddle really work. And why the Battle of the Basilisk is good as well is because we have real practical effects. The CGI is much better in the wider shots, but once you go tight, even in medium shots, when you have Harry on a full body shot going with a sword through the mouth of the basilisk, you have a creature right there, a real, not living, mechanical creature who Daniel Radcliffe is fighting in front of the cameras. It's such an improvement over the last one. I do feel like I need to end this review with that very last scene of Hagrid coming back from exile or from Azkaban. I believe he was in Azkaban. And you just have everyone going up to him and hugging him. Every time I watch this film, and I've watched this film so many times, I still get teary-eyed. I mean, it's Hagrid. Of course I get teary-eyed, but oh my god, this scene is so friggin' powerful. It's probably one of the best endings in this entire franchise, despite not being maybe one of the best movies in this entire franchise. But Chandler, how do you rate this film and what are your final thoughts?
I understand some of the hatred that people have with this film. It's not one of the best. There's definitely some of the most dull moments in here, some of the most childish moments compared to any of the other films that came into the Harry Potter franchise, but when you really look at it and you don't compare it to Sorceress of Stone, I think that this can be an enjoyable, fun flick. It's not as bad as what people say it is. In fact, I think that compared to some of the stuff that they did in the future films where they just got unbelievably dark and took itself so seriously, I think this one was a lot more of a breath of fresh air for me, at least. Harry Potter is definitely a unique kind of franchise, and I like that it transitions over from kids to teenagers to adults. It literally has the process of a little kid transitioning over to being a teenager and then transitioning over to an adult in the finale. That's literally the process of Harry Potter. I don't think I've seen any other franchises that actually went to that kind of process. So yeah, in my opinion, I don't think Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is as bad as everyone thinks it is, and for my rating system, I say that this film is definitely a fun popcorn flick. So yeah, that's it that I have to say about this movie. I'm gonna hand this over back to you, Mr. Ren Geekness. So in the meantime, bye.
I would agree with that rating very much, sir. In my opinion, Chamber of Secrets is exactly what a sequel to a film like The Sorcerer's Stone should and could be. It's a very welcoming fantasy film that dips its toe into the darker waters of the characters growing up like we are. I recognize it's a better made film in terms of structure and script, but I still do prefer the first one. I am, however, going to end up giving it the same grade I gave Philosopher's Stone of a B. Now guys, what do you think of The Sorcerer's Stone? Please do go find Chandler. All of his links are in the description below, as well as mine, so search us all around on social media and let me know your thoughts on this film. Go to my last review with Sean Chandler and let me know your thoughts on The Philosopher's Stone, and look out for more Harry Potter reviews coming your way very, very soon. I want to thank my guests up until this point. I'll have many more guests in my next reviews, and I hope to see you there, guys. So until then, you stay beautiful, you stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button, click the bell so we can be geeky united!